and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a good week last week, a good weekend to recover. It was Comsverse in the UK last week, which went really, really well. And I talked about it a little bit last week. Big UK focus, Microsoft Teams, and this year also Microsoft Viva conference. And it was really, really good, really great couple of days. It's a great run conference. It was really nice as well. It was a very friendly conference. What was really interesting this year as well is that quite all of the organisers from Comsv Next were over. So it was kind of really good to catch up with them. And it was good. It's really grown as a conference in the past few years, it feels like, in terms of the number of sponsors, in terms of the excitement, the kind of buzz on the floor, lots of things actually. But it was really, really good. So I really liked it. I thought it was really good, and got a lot out of it as well. Really good to catch up with lots of people. It was a true international conference as well. There were folks over from all over, from Europe, from America, from Canada. It was really good to see lots and lots of people. And I picked up lots of good information. It was nice having that Viva track actually, because Viva is something I don't often dig really deep into. And so it was nice to be able to do that with some of those sessions to really understand some of the detail of both what's coming, but also what's landed. Okay, couple of things to talk about this week. I'm not going to talk for a really long time this week, I don't think. I'm going to try and keep it kind of short. We'll see how that goes. The first thing I do want to tell you though is, so last week we talked about some new graph APIs for webinars, and I was a little bit vague about what they were and whether or not they'd be chargeable and what the capabilities were going to be, because really all I had was the updated documentation that you could go and see on the graph documentation, and there hadn't been any kind of announcement. Well, pretty much as soon as I put out the update, in came the announcement, as is often the way. And so on that same day, Microsoft did their own blog post announcing this, and that's what I just want to go through real quick today, just to kind of backfill. Like if you weren't here last week, then this will be new information, but if you were, just to kind of backfill some of the gaps that we had around that Teams webinar API functionality. All right, so this is the blog post, and it's talking about earlier, they've had advanced webinars in Teams Premium, and now there is they're announcing a preview, so a beta. They use the words preview and beta interchangeably, and it kind of annoys me. And even here, where you've got preview, beta, one after the other, of new graph APIs. So this will allow you to get and monitor webinar data. So this is interesting. So right now it's about just looking at the current state of webinars. It's not about changing that state. So there's no update, delete, or create APIs right now. It does say they're coming, but right now it's all about kind of getting the information. So we've got some use cases and all the rest of it. So let's just go down here for some detail around what there is. This is about, like I say, getting content. A future release will include create, update, and register APIs, which is good. Let's go down. They're kind of pointing out here that like the things you can do, the things that you get out of the API are the same things that you get out of the UI experience. And just have a look. What's interesting as well, these APIs are change notifications. So they're webhooks. So that means that you need to kind of build them in that sort of way with your, you register, you subscribe to notifications about a particular event or a particular webinar, and then you can get told for every registration and every kind of event question as well. So this is good for people who want to react. Maybe you want to, I don't know, as people register for a webinar, you want something to happen internally. You want to update a database, or you want to update some third-party system, or even you want to send them out another email to say more information, some documents to read, whatever else it is. Same with registering and cancelling as well. Okay, so this is good to see. It's good to kind of see the documentation or the announcement kind of solidify the documentation. If you're doing this, so two things to remember. So the first is it's beta, it's not GA. So that's fine, you can still use it, but you're just not supported in production environments. But the flip side to that is if you do find problems, you're encouraged to provide your feedback at aka.ms/graphfeedback in order to let them know what doesn't work so they can improve it before it goes GA. So Yeah, just wanted to cover that. So new API functionality for Teams webinars, which is great and good to see. Next thing I just want to tell you about. So this is another blog post, and I'm just going to go through it. But actually, it's kind of interesting, not for what the title is, it's kind of interesting for what it tells us and kind of new functionality. So this is around, it's the blog post is titled Breaking Change. It's an Enum property addition to Teamwork Devices in Microsoft Graph. So this is for the beta version of Microsoft Graph. And this is the Teamwork Devices. So this is when you're getting data from what's happening in Microsoft Teams. You're getting that data, that call wrap-up data, and it gets, again, it's a change notification you can subscribe to. And so you can get that information about Teams devices enrolled in your tenant. And actually, I'll say it's a change notification. I think it shows up in two ways. I'm pretty sure it shows up in two ways, but this is probably worth checking. The first is there are kind of get commands that you can get to get devices in your network. And the second place it might show up is in call wrap-up of call quality information. Anyway, the thing that is new is there's a device type in this data that defines, the type of device. And now there's a new value, which is called SIP analog. And so it's meant to kind of describe legacy analog endpoints, things like fax machines, probably elevator phones, definitely, factory floor devices, and it's registered with Teams through the SIP gateway. All right, so will this impact you? Well, it kind of depends on how you write your code. If you are parsing enums and you're doing like switch statements or whatever on enums, then probably it will, because all of these devices are going to fall into some kind of catch-all default. And so you probably want to do them separately. If all you're doing is converting your enums into strings and storing them somewhere, this probably won't impact you, except that you'll have interesting new data values in there as well. So it might impact sort of downstream reporting. Just wanted to let you know, it's kind of to be aware of if you kind of play in this space. You'll know by now if you use Teamwork Devices. So new enum value, and again, it's just in beta right now. I would expect it to come to GA at some point. If they're classing it as a breaking change, then that's kind of interesting, because breaking changes do have to be carefully planned into GA. So if Microsoft are thinking about it as a breaking change, and it sounds like they are, because that is the title of the blog post. If they're thinking about it as a breaking change, then it will have a long introduction into GA. So normally, I think breaking changes have 2-year announcement windows. So and that hasn't happened yet into GA, so it is still in beta. So if you are building this in, just be aware of it, but also be aware that it might be quite a long time before it shows up in GA. Okay, and one more thing to tell you about, and that is a new thing that's shown up on the Microsoft 365 roadmap that I want to tell you about, that I think is quite interesting. It's probably not going to be here for a little while, and it's new into the roadmap, but I thought it was quite cool. And this is about the ability to create Outlook meetings, or meetings in Outlook, Teams meetings in Outlook. Let's get this right. Create Teams meetings in Outlook, and also choose which Teams apps are going to be in those meetings. So this is something you can do today in Teams. Absolutely, you can go schedule a meeting, and then you can, as part of scheduling that meeting, you can go and choose which apps should be in that meeting. What this is doing is adding that same functionality to Outlook for Windows, what Microsoft call Classic Outlook for Windows. Who still uses Classic Outlook for Windows? I do. It's one of the few Outlook clients that supports multiple profiles, and I use it a lot. I know in the enterprise is heavily used. So this is a play, I think, to really ramp up the use of apps in Teams, Teams meetings certainly, by making it much easier for many more people when they're scheduling Teams meetings to remind them really and give them those tools to create, add apps into Teams meetings. So this is kind of a big deal. It is always a big deal. Those kind of big old legacy, I suppose, like applications like the classic Outlook for Windows, but are still so important in enterprise. So many people still have them. And so if you can get features into them, it really tends to move the needle on adoption. So I think this is going to be a big one. It is going to take them a while. So it's just gone into the roadmap. They've got a preview available in July and a rollout start planned for September. So I imagine this is probably September, October. We're getting close to Microsoft Ignite. So this might be something that gets demoed at Microsoft Ignite. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, and I think this is kind of a big deal. This is going to bring Teams apps in meetings to more people who probably are not aware that you can even have apps in meetings and are certainly not thinking about adding them when they go schedule the meeting. So I think this is good for that visibility play. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. Yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see for how long it takes, see what it looks like when it gets there. So all in all, I think that's a good thing. All right, that is everything from me. I hope you find these useful. I find them useful in just figuring out what's going on every week. It's a good grounding in just keeping up with the news. Plenty of fun things happening this week, and then I've got to try and figure out what I'm doing over the holiday period around doing these updates. I think I want to carry on doing them if I can, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, great week last week at Comsverse. Looking forward to another good week this week. I hope whatever it is you're doing, you have a good one, and I will speak to you all again next time.